Hi folks, I'm Cara Thompson, and over the course of the next 5 minutes, we're going to be coding our way from this to this as I share with you some top tips and tricks for annotating your plots. So our starting point for this is the penguins dataset from the Palmer Penguins package. It's my go-to for demonstrating stuff, but it has a few quirks, which might be by design, about the flipper length and the body mass being integers. So we're just going to go and change those to numeric. And from that point onwards, we can just go ahead and create our basic plot. So we're going to use ggplot. And we're going to just use points. Here we go. So we're going to use bill length, flipper length, species, body mass, and then we're also going to add a wee bit of transparency in, just because there are lots of data points and it's quite nice to be able to see them if they overlap. After that, we just need to add a title, a subtitle, and change our axes. We have what we are going to call our basic plot. So our first tip is all about making it easy for the reader. So we're going to go ahead and use colour so that we can help them orient themselves just as they're reading the text. I'm just going to use the colour scheme from the artwork of the package. And what we're going to do is just apply that to our penguins. We're then going to set the theme to minimal. And then we're going to use a bit of glue and a bit of CSS to add some colour into our title. So you can see here we're choosing to add the colour that's relevant to the species whenever we mention that species. Done the same thing here, and we're doing it here as well. Now, in order for that to work, we need to also add element markdown. So let's do that. And there we go. So we're already looking a whole lot better, and we're only one tip in. So the next tip is to keep the main thing the main thing. And in order to do that, we're going to use a primary text colour and a secondary text colour. To pick those, I just used monochrome, and I'm just going to go and add those in to our colours. So now what we want to do is change elements in our theme so that we're making use of those colours. I've also changed the fonts and the font sizes. We also want to apply the same principle to any text boxes that we add. So let's go ahead and create some summary data. All we're doing here is we're taking the mean body mass, and we're also giving each box an X and a Y coordinate. So let's add those text boxes in, and we're going to just take off the surround of the boxes, and we're going to make them slightly transparent so that we can still see the data that's behind them. In using the text boxes, we also have to specify the font. So there we have 3 text boxes that add a little bit to our story, help the reader understand, but also still allow us to see the trends in the data. Number 3 is about using alignments well to direct the gaze of your readers. We talked about there being some exceptions in this penguins dataset, so let's just first go and find them. So we have this one here who has a very long bill and very short flippers that we're going to call Cyrano. Here we have a very small one that we're going to call Tinkerbell. Here we have one that defies the odds of his species. We're going to call him the Big Friendly Giant. And here we have the Gentoos who tend to stick on trend. So we're just going to pick out one of these and call them Average Joes. So let's create a data set with just those penguins in it so that we can add some text boxes to tell their stories. So there we go. These are their coordinates that we've picked out. We're going to arrange them by bill length. And then we're going to add a few properties, including some nicknames and some descriptions for them. After that, we want to add the coordinates of the boxes, and we go back to the main plot, and we can just add those boxes in. There we go. Now, I would quite like to change these. So if the box is just above the dot, I would like text to be centered. If the box is to the right of the dot, I would like it to be aligned onto the left of the box, and vice versa. So let's go back up to our exceptions data frame and just add those alignments in. We then need to just pull those coordinates through into the code for text box. There we go. We've got our boxes nicely aligned. The only issue is some of them got chopped off. So let's just add a wee bit of space to stop that from happening. So our 4th tip is to do with adding arrows and making the most of the fact that you can feed vectors of coordinates, etc. into an annotate call. So let's just go and start adding the coordinates that we need. We're also going to add in some curvatures. Again, we're applying a similar principle in that we want the arrows to stop just short of the coordinate of the point that we're pointing to. Now, I said we could feed it vectors of coordinates, which we can. The only issue is we can't feed it vectors of curvatures. So what we're going to do is add a little loop that will filter the exception data for each unique curvature that we've got. and then add arrows with that curvature to our plot. It just avoids having to have several annotate calls. That means that you can give them all, for example, the same size. You can make sure that the arrows are all the same as well. This just avoids you a lot of copy pasting. The last thing we want to do is give everything just a bit more space to breathe. So we're going to change the line heights in the boxes, and that's because the larger font size is controlling the spacing between the lines. We're going to get rid of the colour legend because we don't need it, we've got it in the text. We're also going to go and change the formatting of the legend so that we're popping it at the top and making the right bits of it stand out. We're going to give all of our text a little bit more space to breathe. As a final touch, we're going to remove the minor grid lines. So there we have it, from a fairly basic plot to one that tells a story with some nicely formatted labels. And thank you for listening, and I really look forward to seeing what you end up doing with these tips and tricks.